Hi, I'm Sil, and this is part 7 of my video series, The Best Way to Learn English. Now today, I would like to begin by telling you a story. Back in high school, I had a friend who wanted to become more popular with girls. And I suggested to him, hey, athletes are always very popular with girls. Why don't you do a sport? So he didn't do any sports at all. And he thought, okay, well, what sport should I do? What sport should I do? And I thought, well, which are you interested in? Excuse me. And he thought basketball would be cool. But he never played basketball in his life. So the first thing he needed to do was to learn the rules of basketball. He needed to learn that to score points, you have to shoot the ball into the basket. He had to learn what the lines on the court mean, and he had to learn that you can dribble when you're walking, or when you're running or walking, but if you're holding the ball, you can't walk, etc. So he learned that's the first thing he did. He went to the library, he looked for a book that explained the rules, he read the rules, and then he went out to play basketball. Well, it was his first time to play basketball, so of course he wasn't very good. He tried to dribble, but the ball went everywhere, so he couldn't control the ball. He tried shooting into the basket. That was very difficult, and he didn't get many. Baskets. So after an hour of trying this, he gave up and he went to the library again, and he looked for another book that had advice on how to become a better basketball player. So he read some of it, and then he thought, oh, these are really good tips. Okay, that's great. Now I know what I should do. And then he goes back out on the court, and of course, he still can't play. He can't get it in the basket. And so after this, he went back to the book, and he read a little bit more about how to be a better player, and he went back to the gym, still couldn't play basketball very well. And he kept doing this. He kept going back to the book and reading the next chapter. Oh, these are great tips. This is great advice. Wonderful strategies. And he would go back to the gym. He would try to play, and he wouldn't be any good. And he kept doing this. He spent more time reading about how to play than he did actually playing. And so his progress was very slow. He never became very good at it because he didn't understand that the advice in the book was just to tell him how to do it, but his body needed to learn how to play by practicing and by playing real games a lot. He should have gone out and played basketball for real, 1 hour or 2 hours every day, or at least 3 or 4 hours a week. And then he would probably have gotten a lot better. But he didn't do that. He always went back to the book. He went back to the book, learned more strategies, so he could talk about basketball, but he couldn't play it because his body never learned how to shoot a basket properly. When he was playing a game and other players were coming to him, he would panic and he didn't know what to do. They always got the ball from him. So why am I telling you this story? Well, the reason I'm telling you this story is because a lot of English students do the same thing with English. A lot of students, I mean most, maybe 90 or 95% of the students that I have met in my life, that's exactly how they approach English studying. Of course, you begin with a textbook, and that's great because you need a textbook to explain things in your language. So they learn the basics. They learn a few words, basic vocabulary: sing, dance, cook, speak, talk, listen, drink, eat. They learn all these basic words, and they build a very, very basic vocabulary. And they learn the basic grammar, the subject, verb, object, and then there's these patterns. So they learn the basic grammar, they learn the basic pronunciation, and they learn the basic vocabulary. The problem is that after learning these basics, most students, they go on to another lesson, but they don't actually try to communicate in English with other people. They don't even read and try to understand what's written. They just go on to more lessons. The next lesson, the next lesson, the next lesson, the next lesson. And so, just like my friend who never learned to play basketball very well because he kept reading books about how to be a good basketball player, but he never actually tried to use that knowledge. He tried only for a short time, maybe 1 hour once a week he would try, but his progress was very, 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 very slow. And so after a few months, he gave up. Now, this is what happens with students. So this is a problem because you can't learn to play basketball by reading books. Now, if you practice a lot, if you go out and you practice your shots and you actually try to do things with the ball, you try to dribble and you play real games with your friends, and that's what practice should be. But instead, they're just reading about it. Now, English students do the same thing very often. They'll read about how to improve their English. They're learning more grammar rules. They're learning more vocabulary, actually a lot of students ignore pronunciation, and they shouldn't. They should learn pronunciation. But anyway, so they're always learning new grammar and new vocabulary, new grammar and new vocabulary, new grammar and new vocabulary. But they never actually use what they've learned, so they never get very good at it. I know students that can read very high-level English because they've memorized the vocabulary and they've memorized the basic grammar, but they can't say something very simple, something like, yesterday I went to the grocery store to buy some milk because I didn't have any left at home. That's a pretty simple English sentence, and someone who can read Time magazine should be able to say that without too much trouble. But I know many, 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 many people with a very, what you call a high-level vocabulary, but they still can't say that sentence correctly and easily. So what's the solution? How do you fix this problem? Well, the answer should be obvious. Just like my friend who didn't spend enough time playing basketball, he read about how to play basketball, but he never actually played basketball. It's the same thing. With English, stop studying so much. Now, I wrote here, stop studying. I don't mean stop completely, because my friend, for example, if he played basketball 5 or 6 or 7 hours a week, then his skills would improve. Then he can go to the textbook, read the chapter on how to improve his technique, how to become better, and then go back out and use what he read to play better. That's how that works. It's the same thing with English. Instead of doing 100% lessons and drills and practice, practicing just for the sake of practicing. You need to go out, and I don't mean go out of your house, but I mean you need to stop doing the lessons for a while and go and use English as a communication tool. So that means reading, listening, and speaking. If you don't live in an English-speaking country, then maybe you don't have many chances to speak, but input is something that you can get, and you can get a lot of it with the internet. Or probably you probably have English TV in your country. Many countries do. So you can listen, you can watch a TV show, you get the listening, and you can read web pages, blogs, you can watch videos that are on YouTube or many other sites. There's a lot of input available. And make no mistake, input is using English, okay? If you're watching something or if you're reading something and you are interested in the content, in the actual information, that is really using your English, okay? So as an example, if you open a textbook and there's a sample conversation between John and Jill. John: "Oh, Jill, can you pass me the salt?" Jill: "Sure, here you go, John." This is study. This is not real communicative English because you don't care about the content. You are only reading this to learn more English rules, more grammar, and more vocabulary. You're not reading this because you're interested in the story of John and Jill, right? So that's why this is not real communication. But when you watch a TV show, if you like the TV show, you like the story, and you want to know more about this story, you want to know more of the story, that is real communication. Now, it's true, you're not talking with these people, that's true, but it's communication because you really want to know the content of what they are saying. You're not watching it only to study English, you're watching it in English to understand the story. If you read a newspaper article, same thing. If you read it in English, then you're reading it. Yes, you are also using your English, you are improving your English, and you can call that practice if you want, but the real goal is to get the information. You want to know what the news is, and that is real communication, okay? Now, you can do this with, hey, I have the Slow Easy English news videos. And it's slow. It's real communication. I'm giving you the real news in those videos, but I'm doing it slowly. So if watching CNN is too fast and too difficult, watch my news videos. It's real news. The content is real, so it's interesting, I hope. And you're using the English to get the information. Remember, English is not the goal. English is simply a tool to do something. So you're using English to accomplish another goal. If you're reading the newspaper, that goal is to understand the news, to know what happened yesterday or the day before. If you're watching the news, again, you're listening, and the goal is to know what the news is. If you're watching a TV show, the goal is to understand the story that is happening on TV. Another example, use a recipe. Look up a recipe on the internet, and in English, follow that recipe to cook your meal next time you cook. In this case, yes, you are learning new English words. That's great. As you are making this recipe, you're learning English. But you're not making the food just to learn new English. You're making the food because you want to make this recipe. It looks delicious, but you're doing it in English. So that's the point here. Okay, now here I have a couple of graphs, and I want to be clear. Another problem, I'm talking about real communication versus lessons and drills and practice, okay? So it's important to get real communication, but how much? Here you can see in green or yellow, it's actually a yellow marker, but the ink looks green. I don't know why. Anyway, so in green, yellow, or gray yellow, no, anyway. In this color, whatever color it is, I have input. And in blue, I have output. And you can see that the amount of input is about 85 or 90, excuse me, 85 or 90%. So, yes, you should try to get 80, 90% of your English exposure should be input. So that means if you study, if you look at, oh, I'm sorry, I got distracted. I'm sorry. What this means is, if you, for example, are taking English conversation classes, so you meet a teacher like me, and you're speaking English, right, for 1 hour, let's say 1 hour a week, okay? It means you should be watching TV, reading the newspaper, reading magazines, blogs, all kinds of things. You should be getting 8, 9, 10, 20 hours of input. That's how you really learn English. Memorizing a new word, that's only the first step. You need to see that word being used in real English. So your input should be about 80 or 90%, maybe more, okay, maybe 95% of your English, the time you spend either studying or using English. Most of it should be input. Very little for output, okay? Even me, I'm a native speaker. I probably get 90% input. Newspapers, TV shows, movies, even talking to my friends. If he's talking half the time and I'm talking half the time. So if you consider my entire day, I'm probably getting 80, 90, 95% input compared to how much English I'm speaking. And that is necessary. That kind of input is not an option. It is absolutely necessary to improve your speaking. Because it's with input that you learn how words are used, how certain grammar is used, and how some expressions are used, and when to use them, and where to use them, and who to use them with. All of that is from your experience with input, listening and reading. So do not skip this step. It's so important. Input, 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 output. That's how it goes. And remember that. 80, 90% input, 10 or 20% or maybe less, 10 or 20% output. Now, it doesn't mean that output is not important. It is important. You need output to learn to speak well. Okay? If you want to be a better speaker, you must get this output. You have to. What I'm saying is not, it's not important. What I'm saying is that output is very important, but more input is also very important. They're both necessary if you would like to become a good speaker of English. So these two graphs, you can see they look similar, and this is how you should do it. 80-90% input, 10% output. And here, of your English, 80 or 90% should be used for real communication. Okay, and I mean watching TV, reading a newspaper. Again, every time you read or watch something or listen to something and you're interested in the content, the actual information, if that's your goal, that's real communication. But if you're reading a textbook or if you're looking in a dictionary, that is not real communication. That is lessons and drills and practice and memorization. Okay? So try to remember this. 80-90% input and 80-90% real communication. If you do this, I guarantee you, well, I suppose if you're only getting 1 hour of English a week, then no. But if you're doing 2 or 3 hours a day, or let's say 1 hour a day even, it's not so bad. If you're doing 1 hour or 2 hours of English a day, every day, and of that English, this is how you split up your time, I guarantee you, you will speak and understand English at a very high level in a very short time. I don't know, each person is different. I can't give you a time, but this is how you learn English, and this is how you learn English quickly. Give yourself a lot of input and make sure that it has real meaning for you, real communication, okay? So, put the textbook away. Go watch my Slow Easy English news videos. If you can't understand CNN, go watch those. They will help you with your listening and they'll help you with your vocabulary as well. Once those videos become very, very easy for you, then you can go on. I have some tips that I will do in another video on where you can get good input for you. And if you can, output as well. I also have some advice for that I will cover in a future video. So for now, just remember, this is how you break up your time, all your English time, basically, okay? So that's it for today. I know I rambled on a lot and I repeated a lot of things many times, but the reason for that is because this is so important. I want you to understand it and to know it so well that you're sick of hearing it, okay? You should be sick of hearing it. I never want you to forget this. This is absolutely 100% crucial to learning English. So if you're not doing this, start doing it today. Increase your input like crazy, okay? You can't get too much input. Don't forget, a little output is also necessary to improve your speaking and your writing, okay? So don't forget the output, it's also important, but the input, and a lot of input, is also necessary. And also don't forget, close that textbook. Use the English for real communication. If you study English even 3 hours a day, every day, from a textbook only, and you never actually use the English, you'll never speak English well. Never. You'll remember a few sentences, but you'll never learn how to use them, where to use them, when to use them, with who, with whom to use them. Okay? So, so this is really important. Are you sick of it yet? Okay, good. If you're sick of it, great. Now I can finish this video and you can go on to something else. But please do come back soon. I will have another video in a few days, I hope. And then hopefully I will have some more great tips for you on the best way to learn English. If you like this video, please click the like button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody who is studying English. If you're an English teacher and you have students, please feel free to share. and tell them about my videos and my website. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye.